Well, good morning and welcome to the International Business Appreciation Month at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. This is the 13th year where we've brought students, faculty, and staff from across the globe to discuss the path to success in international business careers. I'm Joe Rotman, Director of the International Business Program here at UMSL. This is the second of 8 IB Appreciation events throughout the month of February. You can check out the schedule and register for the other events at ib.umsl.edu. Before I introduce our panel moderator, I'll go over some of the logistics for this morning's session. It's currently live in Zoom and streaming live in Facebook. It'll also be recorded for broadcast later. If you have questions for the panelists, you can use the Q&A function within Zoom, and we'll keep an eye on those questions and send them to the panelists after the interactive interview that we'll have with them. Our panel moderator for today's session on global entrepreneurship is Dr. Shaker Sadasivam. Shaker is the president of the UMSL International Business Advisory Board. He is also co-founder and CEO of Auragent Bioscience, a St. Louis-based company developing bioanalytical tools for biomedical research. And he's also CEO of Vitro Diagnostics at-home solutions. In addition to all of that, he's a board member on 2 public companies and 3 private companies. Before entering the realm of global entrepreneurship, he was the CEO of SunEdison Semiconductor, where he spent 25 years in various roles of research, development, and operations. I want to thank all the panelists for being part of this session today, and I'll turn it over to Shaker to introduce Julio and Linda.
Thank you, Joe, for that very kind introduction. And it's my pleasure to introduce our 2 distinguished panelists. And keeping with the theme of the IB Appreciation event this year, it is a very diverse panel with very diverse experience. And I will first introduce Chioni Linda Jing. She's the president and CEO and board director of Genective, which is a 50-50 joint venture established between Lima Grain and KWS. And these are the 2 largest seed companies in France and Germany. And they are the 4th and 5th largest globally. And they're delivering novel and sustainable biotechnology solutions. And she has successfully transformed Genective from a Paris-based virtual entity into an operationally independent company here in the middle of the US, which is a huge accomplishment. And under her leadership, Genective has quadrupled the workforce, signed up multiple collaborative partners, doubled the speed of innovation, and increased their revenue by 40%. And all this through the 2 years of COVID. Very, very impressive. And she's also joined the board of directors soon after she became the CEO. And this was based on her effective performance and the value she delivered to the business. And she's effectively engaged in value creation, risk oversight, and seeking common ground among cultural and priority differences. As you can imagine, a company that spans 2 continents and uses people from all over the world, there's a lot of cultural work to be done, and takes a lot in growing a company like that. And prior to Genective, and this is pertinent to how each one gets into this entrepreneurship role, Linda held executive positions across commercial, supply chain, R&D, and corporate affairs at Monsanto, worked in R&D, led a $200 million digital transformation, and managed the global plant breeding operation in 35 countries. Wow. And also her other achievements include over $10 million cost savings from inventory reduction across different parts of the business. And earlier in her career, she also worked at General Motors, headquarters in Detroit, and its regional operations in the US, China, and Mexico. And prior to that, she worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers. She has an MBA and an MA in economics and a BS in industrial engineering. And she's fluent in Spanish, French, and Japanese. Thank you, Linda, for being part of the panel. And we look forward to talking to you more. Our other distinguished panelist is Julio Zegarra-Ballon. And he's the founder and owner of ZB Market, a fair trade retail business based in St. Louis that operates 2 brick and mortar stores, one located in the South Grand Business District and one in Maplewood, plus zbmarket.com. Julio was born in Arequipa, Peru, where he obtained a degree in economics and moved to the US in 1990. And he started ZB Market in 2012 while getting his MBA at UMSL. So an alum of UMSL, proud to invite you and help you participate in this panel discussion. And this was following his extensive 20-year retail and wholesale career working for two large corporations. His lifelong dream was to become an entrepreneur. And that became a reality when he met a nonprofit organization, Partners for Just Trade, that operated a fair trade business in St. Louis. His involvement with Partners for Just Trade as a volunteer gave Julio the opportunity to learn about business models that puts people and planet first over profits. As the only fair trade verified business in the St. Louis area, ZB Market currently sources unique, handcrafted, and sustainable produced merchandise from 37 different countries and has been a proud member of the Fair Trade Federation of North America since 2015. Welcome, both of you. And I think I'll start with the first question, and maybe I'll start with you, Linda. Given that you moved from working for large companies to moving on to start this joint venture and move all the operations from Europe to the US, can you help us understand what are the key moments and steps in this decision process that caused you to take this path?
Excellent, Shaker. First off, before I answer questions, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all the audience. I understand we have a very global participation today. So wherever you are, it's great to be with UMSL again. And I also just want to say, I always enjoy the opportunity to be with Joe and his team. Feel like I'm on this journey 5 years, have opportunity to participate, go into the classroom, talking about cross-culture communication, leadership, speaking and the conference during the past 5 years. It's a great experience for me, and I continue to learn from this experience too. So just thank you. Shaker, thank you for the nice introduction question you just raised. Actually, I did not start out my career dreaming to be an entrepreneur. It's a very different from what I learned about Julio's intro. Quite contrarily, I spent the first 17 years of my career working in large established companies. In those years, sorry, it's my Swiss cuckoo. All right. In those years, I only worked in the largest enterprise, not even the number 2 in its own industry, right? It's PricewaterhouseCoopers, it's General Motors, it's Monsanto Bayer. But it is what I turned out to be very good at and what I really enjoyed the most. And work led me to entrepreneurship. I love connecting the dots. I like to see the whole and impact the whole. Many of the roles I had in GM and the Monsanto Bayer provided me the opportunity to do so, but it's either in the function or in the business region, not at the enterprise level. So a couple of years ago, when the board of directors for Genective was looking for someone to transform Genective from a Paris-based company into United States, and I made the jump to restart Genective in the United States.
Thank you, Linda. And Julio, what were, in the introduction, I did mention some, but I'm sure there's a lot more to the critical moments and decisions that caused you to go into entrepreneurship. Could you please tell us a little bit more about your experience?
Of course. Firstly, greetings, everybody. I'm coming to you from beautiful Brooklyn, New York, where I've come to an international trade show here in New York, even though I'm based in St. Louis. Thanks so much to the University of Missouri St. Louis for the invitation to join this panel. It's an honor to really talk to all of you and to share my personal story, which may be very different from Linda's, very different from everybody else's. But I think when I look back in my career in retail and wholesale, there are certainly points in my life that now I can realize were key determining reasons why I decided to finally take the plunge, if you will. One of those things has always been my passion to travel and to see the world. So there is this innate interest, desire to learn about other cultures, to learn languages, to visit, to eat the food and experience those countries firsthand. And so that has to be a big driver. But for me, the perfect storm of sorts really started when, while I was enjoying my job in working for corporate America, in meeting great people that are full of wisdom and learning from them, I was nominated by one of the companies to participate in a year-long intensive executive training program called the St. Louis Business Diversity Initiative. And as a fellow, I was lucky enough and privileged enough to attend a year-long training plan that aims to supporting managers and executives of color in St. Louis and to help them on three basic aspects. One is to sharpen their experience and their toolkit. Two is to connect them with a greater network of executives in the city. And third is to find a way to give back to the community that gives us so much. So that was one of those moments that really life-changing ones. And I remember vividly one of those sessions that I attended when the presenter, posed this question to the class. And it was, what would you do if you knew you could never fail? And then the question changed, who would you be if you knew you could never change, you could never fail? And throughout that session that day, it was sort of like a life-changing moment, because you can begin to dream and you can begin to think about all the possibilities if you could do those without the fear of failing. But what it does, it takes you into this roadmap or path where you can say, in order to ensure success or minimize the risk of failure, you can then align several things in your life, whether it's your interest for what you want to do, getting the skill and experience in the field of interest of yours, connect with other people, like-minded individuals who want to follow the same path. So all of that entire session was to me one of those life-changing moments. Thanks to that conversation and internal assessment of my qualities, my what I was good at and what I was not good at, I decided to get my MBA at UMSL, which was the second important path, because you have all sorts of questions about starting a business. You know, you can master certain topics. You're really good at certain things. Mine was retail and wholesale and the mechanics around it, the product cycle, the mathematical side of that, the marketing aspect. But there were certain other things I did not know much about, financing, accounting, the legal system, and all of that. So I figured if I get an MBA, I will have exposure to all those fields where I'm not really really good at. And that was my second really, really big, I guess, moment when I really decided that it was good. But I still had some doubts. I still wasn't sure to really go out there. I was too comfortable with making good money, having benefits, working in a safe environment where I knew the paycheck was guaranteed every weekend. So then I came upon PJT Partners for Just Trade that Shaker alluded to. And through my connection with them by volunteering, I learned about this thing called fair trade and the business transactions that come out of fair trade. And that was the light bulb that kind of finally turned on, because even though I had all this desire to be an entrepreneur, I didn't really know what. Would I do and trade in diamonds? Would I do it in shoes? Would I sell jewelry? Would I sell services like travel services? So the opportunities are endless. But when I found out about PJT, it really solidified and crystallized my desire. And I think that was the journey. Those are the moments that really helped me not only answer the questions and doubts I had, but sort of really focus and point me in the direction of what I ended up doing.
Fascinating. Thank you. And so, Julio, this whole transition, you went from a stable job, you mentioned, to taking this big leap. Salary, you're paying for your family and, all of that, the day-to-day expenses, funding the company. How did you think about all that, and managing those risks?
Great question. Obviously, I am lucky enough to be married to a very wise woman who said to me, I will bless anything you do, and I will be 100% supportive of your decision. Just do not put our home at risk. Do not get a loan and potentially risk our family home. And I took that to heart. I said, the best way for me to start a journey in entrepreneurship is to maybe start small, to test the waters, to see, do I like it? Is this a viable option? And so while I was still fully employed, doing my job Monday through Friday, and still contributing to my company, I decided to apply all the knowledge I had into starting a business. So we may go into this a little later about financing, but I decided to take some money out of our savings account. And I said to myself, if I buy merchandise that I know is fair trade certified, and I find a place to sell it, and I begin an online business, let's see where it can take us. So I was able to do this on a part-time basis, weekends and nights, developing the website and finding new places to sell over the course of the first 2 years. So I did not want to give up the comfort of a job that offered so many benefits just to go into something that I wasn't sure would work. Deep in my head, I think I knew that it would be a successful enterprise, because let's face it, there are some universal retail truths, universal business truths that if you just sort of dot the I's and cross the T's, you have a better chance of success as opposed to just going into this blindly. And that's what I did. I just took the time to learn and reinvested everything that we were generating in profit was reinvested back in the business. So $1,000 initially back in 2012 turned into about $25,000 in value of merchandise 2 years later that the business self-funded. So I think that was the approach I took.
Thank you. And Linda, for you, leaving a job at Monsanto Bayer, and then taking this big leap of faith to work with two companies in Europe, joint ventures by themselves are hard to manage because you're trying to, keep two partners happy. But they're in Europe, they ask you to move this operation to the US. So what is that, how did this all come about, and what is the thought process going through your head in making that leap?
Yeah, it is like I mentioned in the previous question is this is an opportunity to make an impact at the enterprise level, which is huge. Transformation need to go on multiple fronts, from turning virtual into operational entity, from moving some of the existing role, but not the people, but rebuild the company in the United States and find a place to build out and grand open a new global headquarters. So those are really challenges I've never have faced when I was part of a large established company. But I would say I certainly had my fair share of challenging moments. Leaving and being in General Motors, in Monsanto Bayer at that time for so long, right? We took things for granted. There are resources, support that were there for me. For example, I found myself was doing my own expense report for 1.5 years. Just very recently, finally get some help. I'm still doing my own calendar. Those are the things I have not been doing in Bayer Monsanto for a long time, where I was trying to figure out something called a workers' comp insurance audit need to be taken care of. The FBA is under the door, even though they were just field office agent visiting, doing routine visit to companies on actually government's a cybersecurity program. Most people in large organizations may never heard of things like this, and let alone deal with it throughout their career. But those are the things when you do a startup, you experience that on a daily basis. But I would say the most challenging part for me is finding the right people. The right people mean actually for the work we're doing at Genective need to have two attributes: one, smart, highly talented, but two, highly collaborative. Because when we are in startup mode, we constantly looking for the effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2, or 1 + 1 + 1 a lot greater than 3. because it's different than large organization. You have roles very finally or narrowly defined. Everyone does one piece of the work, but in startup, people have to be willing wearing multiple hats, stepping in to help each other anytime needed, and really truly take each other's success as own success. That is actually, it's very difficult to build a team like this. I found that become the most challenging, but also at the same time most fulfilling piece of this journey, because I just don't have the opportunity to do this when I was in the large organizations. I do not know hundreds of HR colleagues there helping, right? And I'm part of that, building the team and developing the team and building the right culture.
Thank you, Linda. I just want to also remind the audience to please feel free to post questions. And after we go through our initial set of questions and answers, we will come to the audience questions. So, Linda, the experience that you had at Monsanto Bayer or General Motors or PricewaterhouseCoopers, how much did that help you in this whole, getting this off the ground quickly? And did you go get people from any of your prior contacts to work with you when you said you were looking for initial people? How much do you leverage both the experience? Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. The two parts question. Let me answer the first part. Or being in large organization, had that helped, and how it helped me a big deal. I didn't do all when I worked and large organization. I didn't do all I did. Again, with the dream of being an entrepreneur, but in hinter side, the experience I had in a large organization really helped with my work now and Genective for two reasons. Number one, just all the learning opportunities I had in a large organization through General Motors and Monsanto. I went through all the major building block functions of any business, being it is on the manufacturing plant, on the plant floor, supervising UAW teams to build cars on a night shift. That's where the rubber meets the road. Build the car, 400 of them per night shift with quality, under your budget, no safety issue, good people relationship. That is very fundamentally, I think it's a very important skill set and experience. And then in Monsanto, I was also in the front line with the customers. I once lead a team of customer service. When the call roll get to me, it's already escalated twice. You got very angry customers or dealers on the other end of the call, and how do you deal with that? I also had the opportunity to do strategic roles, developing 3 to 5 year plan for the US business of Monsanto. That stretched my thinking and capability and experience in a very, very different way. And some of the global roles, the cost of saving $10 million, it didn't come from one country. It comes through the 4 production regions of Monsanto's global vegetable business. So those are the things who have really just prepared me to take on all aspects of running a company. And plus, I believe in perpetual learning. Learning is exciting for me. I just enjoy the learning different functions. That is a huge advantage of being in large organization. There's opportunity, there's resource investment on people. Me, similarly, like Julio, I've been through multiple leadership development program, including what is at that time called Global Leadership Exchange and Monsanto. And that is basically the pipeline, the talent pipeline for the executive team of Monsanto. So very beneficial. Then I would also say the second part is just the systematic thinking, and having an idea of a structure is very helpful, because most of the time, sometimes we see startups, people get started, may not have thought through what other things need to happen 5 years down the road. It's just the nature of the startup. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But I've found bringing a certain level of structure, but have a higher number of preparedness for being flexible, because it's a startup environment now, has turned out to be very helpful for Genective. For example, when I took on the CEO role in 2019, the first thing I did with my team is actually I get everyone together and saying, what kind of place we all want to work at? Let's define our culture. That's probably not every startup will start
Right.
up, let's define our culture. But it turned out that is actually fundamentally important, because once we agreed on what kind of culture we have, we made it very clear in our recruiting. We do 360-degree interview to make sure there's a right fit. That culture is what we believe, how we work with each other, how do we carry ourselves, showing up and work day in and day out. I would say that is something, the huge influence from being both GM and Monsanto. It all has very, very deep, strong culture of its own. The other thing is in my first board meeting, which is after that board meeting, I was added to the board. That was 3 months after my I get on the job. I actually presented to my board a complete strategic framework that has our vision and strategy, again, developed together, bottom up with my team involvement. And I have a 5-year strategy execution plan. So that is 2019. 2020, around the same time, we are doing our performance review, looking into the next year. I actually told the board, here's the flexibility coming, the flexibility on top of the structure. I would actually like to change my next year's goal because I think we can do more. The board has a little bit of suspicion initially, but they eventually embraced my proposal. And the end of year 2, when we look at the year 3, there is a little bit of complication because of COVID, because some IP consideration and some work delay in our partner. I actually went back to my board saying, we actually have to slow down on this aspect. So I think, but overall, we have a 5-year rolling plan. There's always a way of looking forward. Where do we want to be 5 years from now and in the middle? I think having that, the structure that coming from a big company, but blended that with all the agility and flexibility needed for a startup, have worked very well for Genective.
Okay, so you definitely leveraged a lot of your experience and learning.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always appreciate all the opportunity I had with my former employers, all the learnings there.
Okay, and Julio, how did you leverage your experiences, and then what would be your advice to students, starting off? Do they take the plunge right after college? Do they go into a big company, get experience, and then go? Can you please share your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess the easiest answer is all depends. And it all depends. It doesn't answer the question, but I can certainly share my personal story. I too, similar to Linda, worked for 2 large corporations. One was 100% dedicated to retail, and the second one was retail and wholesale. It was the perfect learning ground to understand the mechanics and the process of retailing. And so that became part of my DNA, if you will. And I think when you identify strengths of what you can do in the future as an entrepreneur, you have to assess what you are good at and then take advantage of that. And a big corporation can certainly provide that learning ground. Never underestimate your colleagues, the people that work with you or for you, or those who manage you, because there's wisdom everywhere. And I was always open to learning from, I've always called it shared wisdom, but always be willing to learn. And sometimes you can fix a problem one way in 10 minutes based on your experience, but if you just share that with someone else, you might be able to find an answer in 1 minute. So certainly be open to that shared experience. My advice to anyone who's still in college or soon to graduate from college is to find any way to gain that experience. You could go into a big corporation path first and then take a few years, learn as you can, maybe move to another company. If your dream is to become a small scale business like mine, maybe you can go into startup first, but you need to be able to get your feet wet, so to speak. You need to be able to have firsthand experience in some capacity. You may remember that I said that one of the defining reasons why I decided to finally become an entrepreneur was my connection with Partners for Just Trade, a non-for-profit. I had done a sort of mental checklist of everything that I was already able to bring to the role, but I really wasn't passionate about any one segment of the economy that I wanted to trade in. But my partnership, my involvement with Partners for Just Trade really opened my eyes, and it gave me the opportunity to learn about fair trade as a volunteer first. A year later, I became part of their board. And so all of a sudden, any doubt you ever had, it can be crystallized by having that. So I urge you, if you haven't already, definitely consider internships in the field of interest. Don't be afraid to volunteer in whatever capacity. And there is something that you just don't know what you don't know. I'm literally quoting Joe Rotman in a class that I took in IT for my MBA. And there is so much truth in that, because you can begin to question and build experience in the things that you can see, that you know, but there's so much out there that you don't know. And entrepreneurship is one of those. So be open to learning about the things you don't know. Ask the hard questions. I personally loved the companies that I worked for, and more importantly, the people that I worked for. I learned a ton, but at one point, my values and my dreams were no longer aligned with what the company's direction was. And to me, finding fair trade as a way to alleviate poverty, as a way to empower producers, artisans, small-scale farmers around the world, as a way to give opportunities to impoverished and often marginalized communities around the world, was the biggest driver. And so starting ZB Market managed to fulfill that dream. And of course, like any retail business, you start somewhere, you start small, and you grow from there. I have learned that had I not been a member of part of the workforce in two large companies, I may not have been successful. However, if you ask the right questions and find a network that can support you in maybe outsource or partner with people that are better at other things that you're not good at, that can lead and answer the questions that will help you become a successful entrepreneur.
Thank you, Julio. I can see both of you, the passion that both of you bring to your businesses and how you have leveraged everything you've learned from your past experiences in being able to really make both of these ventures successful. The next question, I wanted to try to blend in a couple of questions that came in through the Q&A with, anyway, you take such a big plunge, you get into these ventures that are more risky than what you're working in. What are some of the challenges, or maybe even the biggest challenge that you faced? And then there's another part to it, what has been most rewarding? And is there something that you do different, having been in the business for so long? So there are three parts to this question. What has been the biggest challenge? What has been most rewarding? And there's something that you do different based on everything you've learned so far. What are some of the things that you would do differently? Let's start with you, Julio.
Well, for one, if your name is outside the building, it is very different than working for a company where their name is outside the building. So I think you take pride. And personally, I want to start with a fulfillment. It is a joy, a true satisfaction to wake up every day and to know that your work is making a positive impact in the lives of others, is perhaps creating the new answers to challenges that we all face, whether it's in healthcare, etc. I think having your name outside the building, I'm going to call it like that, gives you tremendous pride. And it's the force that encourages you to work 12 to 15 hours a day, sometimes, where you're never removed from your business. But in terms of challenges, the biggest one for any small business is to get your name out there. You want people to know that you exist. For us, as a retail business, you obviously want to find customers that will buy from you, whether it's in person or online. And that is one of the most competitive fields today for anyone. So I will go back to my economic roots, to my business sense. And it's, if you find a business model that gives you a competitive advantage, where you can meet an unmet need, because that's key. If I want to sell something and I identify that in my community or in the region where I operate or transact, there is unmet need for something, either a service or a product, then I have a much better chance of success. And that's the analytical sort of looking inward that you need to see. And how do you find the answer to whether it's an unmet need or for a product or service? Then you get your binoculars, so to speak, and you look in the exterior world. For me, I identified that there was only one business in the entire St. Louis area that was true fair trade verified. And of course, I became friends with them. I would go into their store, I would talk to the people, and that was an incredible helpful source of knowledge. Then later, I found out that they were going to close their stores. So today we are the only fair trade verified business in the city. So there are plenty of customers who are very ethically minded, who really want to support our business because we're the only one in town. Now, given that most businesses happen across the internet, worldwide, nationwide and worldwide, then we're actually competing with a ton of other fair trade businesses around the US and across the world. So go back to your basics of business and say, okay, how can we then as a business be unique or different enough from our competitors? Because let's be honest, the purchasing power that everybody has can go into hundreds and multiple ways. You want to get their attention. You want them to be the one that selects your business for that. And the point of differentiation can come in one of two forms. You offer the lowest cost, or you always the greatest level of differentiation, whether it's in service, the quality of products. Ours is a story. We are storytellers first. We are ensuring that everything we sell finds a consumer in the US or around the world that can value the craftsmanship and that their purchase is making a difference, a positive impact in the lives of those producers. So I think it goes back to basics to some degree. You follow that lead and you do a little bit of homework in understanding what level of entrepreneurship you want.
Thank you, Julio. And Linda, so the challenges, your fulfillment from the work that you're doing, and anything different that you do today based on what you've learned.
Yeah, so on the challenging part, I go back to what I touched upon a little bit. It is finding the right people. It is really the hiring part, that the talents with the right attribute has been my biggest challenge. And I also mentioned that is also my most fulfilling part, is to build this team and to have a highly performing team working together day in and day out. I say that's most fulfilling is because by year 2, when we were doing our annual review and the planning exercise again, it was the first time when I actually finally had all my direct reports. I will go back and now I realize Shaker never answered your second part of the question. Let me share a little bit of one hiring case, which is actually my CFO. And that related to the timing of the hiring. So this beautiful facility in the background of me, we grand opened the new global headquarters on March 8th, which 2020, and which is a Friday. Next Monday, the governor of Illinois said we are shutting down. And I have a very aggressive hiring plan. Well, at the same time, I'm sending the existing team going back home to work from home, starting work from home. And the people at that time were really hesitating to take on additional risk by moving jobs. So what do we do? So we explored a few different things, and finally we hired a headhunter, and which eventually find out this person, a few candidates, including the person who in the end became my CFO, who happened to be a former Monsanto Bayer. So Shaker, answer your question. I kept my principle in my first year after the work. I didn't actively go look for my former colleague because I do have lots of respect and appreciation for my former employer. But when we engage the headhunter, this is one of the candidates independently come through. But the thing is, our facility is now even open. We can now do on-site interview. We ended up having one person holding a cell phone is going around, right? So I gave my CFO a lot of credit for jumping the ship because he doesn't even know whether this company exists or not. But what he later on told me that helped was he doesn't even know whether I'm truly the CEO of this company. He does know I, as a person, do exist. and Monsanto Bayer, because you remember being in a big common meeting together with me. So I do think the previous experience, the big company background did help in this particular hiring. Once I have my CFO, I don't have to worry about a lot about the insurance and how to I get my my books balanced and all that. So if I think what I would do differently now, when I started, I would spend more money on hiring. I would get that even faster. So the message to all the students out there is, don't worry. I still remember when I was students, particularly as an international student came to this country where you have all the restrictions, all the requirements, you need your employer help you to shoulder. It feels like getting a job is really a big, very worrying thing. Don't worry about it. Now I can tell you, the company is worried even more than you, because we are constantly worrying about we're not able to find enough good people. We're not able to find them fast enough. So keep that in mind, students.
Thank you, Linda. Great advice. So you have this great idea, you find the people, you start the business. How do you start marketing the business? How do you find your initial customers? How do you start getting revenue? And maybe Linda, you can help us get started here.
Yeah, for us, Genective is a very unique setup. It is. I would say we're very lucky. We are in an industry that is hugely important for agriculture. We do transgenic traits technology for seeds. That there are our customers actually very highly concentrated, including my parent company. So it's a very, very concentrated effort and approach. We know who we work with because we're in, really, it's a B2B business. This is very, very different from B2C, where anyone, many people can become potential customer. So I would say just the nature of the business, what business we are in, helped a lot. We really know who are our customer, who we need to talk with, and even how. This is an industry is also highly collaborative. There's a lot of cross licensing between the large and the small. So on that one, I think we lucked out. Maybe Julio will have a very different story there.
Yes, I'm curious to hear a different perspective. So Julio, please.
Yeah, mine is certainly at a small scale version, but launching ZB Market and then zbmarket.com, you don't wait for the customers to come to you. You need to go find them. You find them wherever they may be, meet them at their homes or whatever. So social media has been a huge part of our growth and how people have found us. As I said before, for the first 2.5 years of me starting ZB Market, I would find every weekend where I could possibly bring our goods to, whether it was a farmer's market or a store, an event citywide, and people would stumble upon the business. I will share the story of products that come from different countries, and the interest was very clear. So that was initially the easy part. And there is certainly ways to expand that and reach more people faster. One of those we did almost immediately was join the Fair Trade Federation. So it's a trade association, and every business may have something similar, but if you join an association, then you open new doors, and people may find you differently. People that are searching for fair trade on any search engine, they're going to find several results. But if you are connected to an entity that has been built and established for a while, that certainly can help you. But one thing that you should never underestimate is your own network. And I'm going to be really blunt here. You have friends, you have family, you have connections, you have friends of friends. Do not be afraid to share that desire to start a business with them. And you will find that they're going to be your biggest cheerleaders, the biggest supporters. On the side, because we are now doing so much business online, I launched ZB Market almost immediately. And ZB Market as a website has its own benefits. You can begin adding all the technology behind it with meta words and alt text behind images and in keywords and everything else. And so before I knew it, you get people that begin to find you. And I'll never forget, I launched my website in November of 2012 on Black Friday. I'll never forget. And my first online order was 2 days later on Cyber Monday. So clearly there are ways to expand. And if you can't do it locally in a small scale first, think in terms of a bigger picture, online and using all the digital resources that are available to you. But trust me, friends and family will be your first, and they are going to be, if what you're doing is worth celebrating and supporting, they're going to be there for you. So multiple ways, but that is just my personal experience.
Okay. And Julio, as you're, answering the question, looks like it takes a lot of time and energy and commitment on an individual to get this business started and get it growing and be successful. So what are some of the sacrifices you have had to make? What does your typical daily routine look like?
Mm-hmm.
And how much has it changed?
Wow. Well, let's just say that city market is in my blood today. And every day starts with that and ends with that. And of course, you have to not be afraid to work extended hours. You need to give your heart and soul. Now, I am at a point in time in my life where our daughters are grown up, so I didn't have to sacrifice being a father and not be there for them. So that's something you need to take into consideration. If you want the business to be successful and you want to be a part of its growth initially, you need to be there all the time. Some businesses have operated much more successfully than mine, have been able to grow faster with financing. And if you're lucky enough and privileged enough to get there, you can certainly delegate and find talented individuals in this difficult labor market who can be your accounting people, who could be your marketers, who could be your operations and logistics. And if you're doing that, then your work and your personal involvement will not be as intense as mine may be. But mine has been intentional. I really want to create a company that at one point I'll be able to detach myself from the day-to-day activities and be able to delegate and just give it to someone and to people who can take the lead, and I can be behind the scenes growing differently. Even though we're retailers primarily, I do want to go into wholesale because I've already built relationships with some producers in some parts of the world, India, Peru, and soon to be Guatemala, Haiti. And so I can't wait to be able to take time away from my day-to-day, visit with them, and develop products that are unique to CB market, that have relevancy to our markets, and that we can also make available as wholesalers and begin a new branch of the company. But be prepared to give it a lot of time and effort. So just find a balance that makes you still be part and involved with your family, but really give it all the heart and soul to make it see through and be successful.
Thank you. And Linda, you have a younger family. And
Yeah.
how have you managed the transition, and how much, what does your daily routine look like, and time, energy, commitment? What does it take?
Yeah, I would completely agree with Julio. I would also say it doesn't even matter whether you work in a large company or you become an entrepreneur. Once you choose something to do, to work on, just give it your all. It's hard working was a given in whatever we do. And yeah, Shaker, you're right. I do have a school age, elementary school age son. Actually, right after this session, we're gonna go do some school visit for him in Clayton. I would say there are times I wish I could spend more time with my son. But I was not able to, because either when I was, this is also true when I was in Monsanto or Bayer time, it's just always busy, travel globally. But very lucky, I had a very supportive partner as well. My husband said something slightly different, but equally supportive to me. He's just saying, do whatever you want to do or do nothing, so long as you are happy. So yeah, that is that is my husband, which I think back in his mind, he know I will never just sit there doing nothing. So but that gave me a really peace of mind. Like I can really pursue what I would like to do full-heartedly. And I do say having a younger age kids, it gives a balance really needed, because helping with Chinese homework is the only thing I can do in my multicultural, multi-language family. There are three official languages in my family: French, Chinese Mandarin, and English. When it's time, I have to go to be with my son. So my team always know, and I also try to share the burden with my husband. One do drop off, the other one, which is me, to pick up. When I pick up my son, there are a few things I try to do with him on a daily basis. I'm going to be a little bit out of pocket through dinner and until his bedtime. But people can always expect me if they, I will be logging onto my computer after my son's bedtime. So it is, do I wish I could have spent more time with my young son? Yes. Is it manageable? Yes, too. Especially if you have a very, very supportive partner.
Yeah, definitely having a supportive family and having a lot of good friends and extended family helps with getting the support to make your family life and your business successful. So Julio touched a little bit on financing. And Linda, can you tell us a little bit about how did the financing come together for Genective? And has there been a time where financing has been a problem?
Well, I'm lucky again because it's JV. I have two founding and funding parents, so I go for a budget and a midterm, long-term plan every year versus do roadshow get funding. Although there have been knock on the door, people were asking whether we need funding. This is a very unique case. I would completely admit that for the Genective, my hand is actually tied to take the fundings because I in order to take additional funding, I first have the current stakeholder agree on that. They so far hasn't have that interest or appetite for it. So very unique situation for startup.
Yep. And what about you, Julio?
Well, mine, I think I threw that out there, but
Yeah.
I took $1,000 out of my savings account to start the business. So we're talking really small amounts versus millions in Linda's case. But regardless, I think starting a small business does require funding, and it's not always easy. It is one of those things. You go to a bank and they tell you, well, we don't have enough credit history on you. And how do you build that credit history? So you have one of this dichotomy of like, well, I can't get a loan because I don't have enough credit history, or how do I build it if I don't get a loan?
Mm-hmm.
So in my case, it wasn't an issue at first because since it started small, I was able to use a revenue that I was generating online and in person every single time I was selling to fund the business and grow it. But when it came to the point where I was about to open my first bricks and mortar store, that did require a bit of funding. And I went the conventional way. I went to the bank where I had banked my whole life, and the loan request was denied. So I was privileged that I had enough in the savings, personal savings, and I went up to my wife again to make sure that I had her blessing. And the answer was the same. As long as you don't put our house as collateral for anything, I am okay. So what I did, I just did a basic business plan. Again, this is where my experience in retail and in wholesale and where I came from helped me put together a financial projection and forecast of what I would need. I took the money out of a savings account, and luckily, and I was so blessed, I was able to pay back within the first 3 months of that loan.
Oh, wow.
So that was it was not, I guess there's more to luck, because when I opened the store, I opened right before the busiest time of the year for us in retail. In my particular side of the business, gift selling is hugely important for the fourth quarter. The 2 months before Christmas can account for as much as 60% of your yearly revenue. So in about 8 short weeks, you can generate that much in sales. So I planned and timed the opening of this first bricks and mortar store at a time when I could get the most return on that investment. And sure enough, the basic principle of retail, pay back. It said, you're going to have success in getting that return on investment quickly. Mm-hmm. If I'd chosen to open a store during the winter months, when you know you don't get enough revenue, it would have taken longer to do that. Now, obviously, there are plenty of sources of revenue that are not the conventional bank loans. I know there's GoFundMe and so many other alternative ways to start up. So that's certainly available to anyone. You just have to put together your your 30-second elevator pitch, if you will, and have a plan so that you can share that dream and that vision with those who you expect to donate or to give you the funding. I do have to say there's one important change in my personal experience, and that is that our platform for selling both in our stores and online is Shopify. Many of you perhaps know it. It's one of the largest e-commerce website hosts in the world. What Shopify does essentially not only hosts your website, but also manages all the income that comes to you from your POS sales at stores. And when you think about it, they are essentially managing your income, and it's deposited to your account a day or 2 days later. So if I sell whatever I sell in a given day, I count on that money coming to our checking account 24, 30, 48 hours later. So they developed this incredible, very clever gift financial incentive to say, since we manage that income coming to you, why don't we offer you a loan to help you grow? And they don't even call it a loan, it's just funding. And they keep, say, 10% every time they deposit that money that you've earned back. So when we do the math, you can get a loan of $30,000. Well, loan, they call it funding of $30,000. And since they manage that money coming in every single day, they essentially pay themselves back with a small, let's call it interest or revenue fee within 6 months if the time is right. So it is a very clever and unconventional way to get funding to grow your business that doesn't require doing any credit check or putting anything on collateral. It is your history doing business with them over time that they can also feel comfortable in saying, based on what we know about you, we can give you funding of this amount. And that has been a life-changing thing for us. So it has truly been, it's come to us right at the right time, and it's been able to grow, help us grow.
Okay, wow. Thank you for sharing that. So, typical statistics, people say, with startups, there's about a 70 to 80% failure rate. So it's only about 20% of companies that start the way you've started succeed. So between the origination of your idea and where you are today, have there been a lot of changes in what you had to do to adapt, Julio? And then I'll ask Linda the same question. So what did you start with? What is the original concept, original idea, and where you are today? What has that journey been, and how much have you changed?
Thank you for the question. It's a really good one just to think about and ponder. But I started in the onset by saying that you try to identify an unmet need in the market. If you begin the journey that way, you are probably going to be in the more successful rate in that small 20% of success stories, because you're already entering a business or an entrepreneur idea on targeting customers that are looking for what you're offering, whether it's a service or a product. So do your homework and start by launching something that is satisfying an unmet need. That would be my number one. The second one, which is another very much a universal truth in business, diversify. Diversify at every level possible. Let me give you this one extreme scenario, and then I'll give you the corrective one. Let's say that I had wanted to only sell jewelry. That's all I wanted to do. And that I had one supplier to get all the jewelry that I sold. So first, jewelry as a category is probably not an unmet need. There are probably millions of people selling jewelry today. But because I've chosen one field and one supplier, the chances of me failing are much greater. The interest in jewelry, in the particular jewelry that I sell, is probably not going to be the greatest. And if my supplier goes out of business, guess what? I completely fail. If on the opposite end of the spectrum, if I've diversified and I go, you know what, we're going to do jewelry, but we're also going to do this, that, and the other, you are giving, you're prorating that risk level across many factors, many different categories. And don't go with just one supplier, go with several suppliers. So if one of them trends up and does really well, you can go and enjoy that market rise. If one of them becomes to decline, that you can minimize that risk or that loss. In our business in particular, because it's fair trade and its commitment to supporting artisans around the world, we're sourcing from 37 different countries. Some of these nations may have a political turmoil happening tomorrow. And if that happens, we will not be able to source anything from that country in the short term. But I've got 20 some other countries where I can do it from. If I have a platform of business where the children's world begins to shrink because there's not enough demand, I have 10 of other different categories that will do. So I think to me, is identifying an unmet need, but also be open to diversification at every level so that you don't only have one store, maybe you have two. You also have an online business. So you're trying to target lots of different customers from various suppliers in different categories.
Okay, thank you. And Linda, you had mentioned, really having a 5-year strategic plan and thinking long-term and continuously. But how did your ideas start? Where did your ideas start? How much has it changed, over time? And obviously the pandemic probably influenced some of it.
Yeah.
So how have things changed since your original conception?
Right. Yeah. I would say I was just listening and then thinking there was two major pivots we've made, and Genective. Number one is actually how do we the relationship between R&D and the commercialization. So a little bit background: we do biotechnology for seeds. Traditional approach, it has always started with the R, the research, then the D, then the commercialization. It is a one-way pushing through the funnel exercise, very similar to what happening in pharmaceutical. It is a very long 10 to 12-year cycle. And that was how we started Genective with, and I would say in the Genective 1.0 time, when it was in France-based, it was not that successful. So Genective 2.0 now moving to the US gave us a whole new opportunity to take a look at what we're doing. And this is, I think, largely biased or influenced by my experience. Worked a lot with the customer, working on the commercial side. So my whole experience was opposite. I came from the customer-facing commercial function, then went to supply chain. We're doing cost and inventory management, then went back to R&D. I always have a deep appreciation for the value of what commercial should be telling R&D. I'll tell you, that was a hard battle to fight initially, because my 6 original board members, they are all PhDs. By the way, they're all 6 white men as well. So it is a very much not diverse board. And then all of a sudden here came this Asian female, and thinking, gosh, we actually have to take into commercial considerations to redesign our R&D. It was like a fight, a lot of convincing on the board meeting, offline. And finally the board supported. And we put that trigger, and from the time we say we really need to do change to we made the changes through our portfolio of R&D program, it takes 8 weeks, including the year-end break we usually have in North America. So that is something that fascinated me in the end when that happened, because in my time working in large organization, GM, Monsanto, Bayer, it probably takes 3 years for all those changes to happen. So we did pivoted the relative, we make it more interactive versus one way. How do we, I call that from integrate R&D and commercial. Number 2 is on our, I would say, operating model or officing strategy. People call that was primarily because of COVID. We started off by thinking it's the same thing, right? Like you run a technology company, you would have your office, you would have your lab, greenhouse, all your field trials, some you own, others you contract others globally. We would, the people be going to the office doing business travel. Then I shared the timing, good or bad timing. We had re-establishing Genective in the United States. COVID hits. A shutdown was the next Monday after we grand opened this beautiful facility. I would say we got lucky as a company. Again, because we're small, we can make decisions very fast. When Genective was based in Paris, we utilized French parents' IT support system. It started to show it's have limitation. It doesn't really working well when we are US based. Again, it went through back and forth communication, convincing. We were permitted to come out of the parent company IT system, go look for our local third party service provider. Then we took the opportunity to say, what else do we need to do? Let's have a little bit structure, long-term thinking. That one of the things, you are already on Microsoft Suite, you might just get Microsoft Teams. And then we all saying, well, okay, what equipment do we need to provide for our new team to be hired? We say, well, everyone should have a laptop, a work cell phone. And so because of all that, we got really lucky. We got that all set up. When COVID hit, we were enabled from day one to all work remotely. When COVID first came, no one knows what to do. The safest thing is to send everyone home.
Yeah.
That's when we were shutting the office down, right? Doing recruiting all remotely. But then as we learned how to coexist with COVID in this last 2 years, there are times when the case number is not that bad. We allow people to go back. Sometimes in middle, we have the shifts, all this abundance of precaution for employee safety and health. But still, we evaluate our mode of operating all the time. There are certain number of roles we have. Scientists in the lab, our technician take care of corn in the greenhouse. Their work, that part of their work cannot be done without being on site. But their data analysis people can still do from home. And at the same time, we keep work-life balance in mind all the time. Okay. I have a relatively younger workforce. Lots of people have young age kids. When daycare shut down, when daycare doesn't offer extended day early care, people need to stay home with their kids. So we've gradually classified every role into categories. One is primary on-site. The other one is primary work from home, which my role is actually now in the second part. So it is definitely a team effort, because every time we make those adjustments, it is a change. But we come along pretty well, which we also benefited from this change of mode of operations. I talked about we're expanding next door, right? We double the workspace from what we have right now. Had we now feeling comfortable, we're going to have a hybrid model. There's a lot of debate about officing strategy, right? Some are saying, going back to office, everyone thinks we haven't been together for so long. The other one, because cost cutting, they get rid of their facilities, physical facilities. Everyone work from home. We strike the balance of the hybrids. We benefit from that in this phase 2 expansion of our Champaign facility. We did not go as large footprint as we would need, and we not figure out this operating mode in the last 2 years. We probably will need more space, but because we see certain role really doesn't even need to have a chair. No one has an office in my company, by the way. Everyone just have one chair. No, I don't even have a chair for me there, because I'm primarily working from home. I would think this is something jump on ship for Genective 2.0 never have thought. We have just evolved and changed so much in a matter of 2 years in terms of how we work together as a team.
Okay, thank you. And you mentioned, commercial being a key part and how you couple it with research and development.
Yeah.
So Julio, there's a question from the audience on how do you find that unmet need? You mentioned the unmet need. How do you find it? If somebody, one of the students wants to find an opportunity, where would they go to find an unmet opportunity?
I think that is a fascinating question. I never really put a lot of thought into that, but I think there are trade associations. And of course, I don't know specifically what this individual's interest is or field of interest to start a business, but what I call that external environment. I mean, I use the equivalent of having binoculars where you can just go outside and see. I am very close to the whole retail environment. So you can literally walk around the store, walk around cities and identify places. But regardless of what section of the economy you're in or what type of service you want to offer, there are often trade associations that can be a source for information, and I would think. In my case, it was a Google search, a simple search to say fair trade in St. Louis or authentic fair trade in St. Louis, and there was only one answer. And that was my starting point. Then I contacted that one company And I sort of started asking questions. And lo and behold, I did realize there were not very many businesses. There are tons of gift stores, don't get me wrong, tons of gift stores. And the model for most of those is just a scaled down version of the big box stores. If you want to buy gifts for somebody, you go to some store that sells things produced overseas and you make your selection and then you go home. Ours is the same model, but ours is a very unique mission. And so fair trade connected to the business was very easy to find. So I'm not sure that I'm answering the question fully, but what I would start is if you really know the field and the industry you want to be participating in, there's probably a search you can do online and connect with someone who already has that business and sort of have a sense of how big that is. The unmet need is a true great gauge to see if what you want to do is going to be successful. Now, that does not mean that if there is already plenty of those out there, that you cannot enter that market, because as long as you can find a differentiator for your particular business, you are okay. And I can give tons of examples, but if you focus on some category and that model that you want to launch is truly unique, that has never been done before, you can still enter that space and be successful, because there will be an unmet need for that particular way of doing business. For us, service is prime. One of the reasons why people love coming with us. They love that personal connection. They are tired of doing everything online. And because they come and they learn about the things they're buying, they take home an item with a story behind it. So there is certainly a uniqueness to that model. So it's something you buy that makes you feel good, but also you know that your purchasing power is making a positive impact in someone's life. You're not giving charity. That is very clear. You're not giving charity. You're simply allowing that individual to find a market for their goods or services in the United States. The second thing I want to say is, yes, you can have customers that are individual, but some businesses or industries lend themselves for larger corporations. So I'm sure that Linda can speak a little bit more to that. So we sell primarily to individuals, to someone coming into our store or online to purchase, but that doesn't mean that we cannot service a corporation. In fact, our 2022 number one goal was to launch a custom corporate gift program that is available everywhere. I mean, you can do that, and AMSL probably utilizes the services of some companies, local companies, that can meet their need for corporate gifts, whether it's to give it to faculty, to your board of directors, or whoever. We are launching that because our differentiator would be we're an ethical company. So we do care about how products are made. And if any corporation wants to come up with a corporate gift plan for 20 people, 100 people, we can be there to service that. So it can look differently. So again, the unmet need is key in my view, and there are resources out there that can help you identify whether you're on the right track.
Okay, thank you, Julio. And I think in the interest of time, I think Linda, you needed to leave shortly, but I think any parting advice for the students that you'd like to share, and I'll start with you, Linda, and then ask Julio.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what I shared earlier. This is the nice thing of being with the students. That's why I love it. It's reminded me of my days when I was students in your shoes. So again, don't worry about finding a job. Focus on what you really enjoy doing. Being it's starting off in a large enterprise or start your own. Just go after it. I think if we can all do that, you can do that too.
Thank you, Julio. Any parting words of advice to the students on entrepreneurship and anything that's experienced?
You know what? I could be telling you for hours and hours what to do. All I can say is that if you truly feel that in your heart that you have passion for doing something on your own, remember, it will be your name outside that building at one point. So you'll be in charge of everything. But ask yourself, am I willing to put in the time? And I'm willing to potentially sacrifice time with my family. And then if I am, and if I do want to follow my dream, and be flexible, be open to changing, be open to course correction as you move along your journey. Partner with anybody and everybody you can think of. Your network is not only your family, now is the cohort in this as a student, anyone that you have ever met that can be a source of inspiration, someone who can give you knowledge, who can give you tips on how to do X, Y, Z, and feel like you can do it without the fear of failing. Remember that quote, what would you do today if you knew you could never fail? If you ask that question and you give yourself the room to be bold and to answer it, you will be amazed at how much potential there is in all of us. Don't jump ship if you know financial is going to be a challenge. Be smart, stay on a job, learn, get experience, and only when you get to a point where you can feel that your endeavor can substitute the income that you're making today for a corporation, then that would be, in my view, the time to dive in and to take a plunge into what you want to do.
Thank you. Thank you both for so graciously giving us your time and the advice and sharing all your experience. I'm sure the students, I definitely learned a lot. I'm sure the students appreciate it too. And I also want to thank the audience and the students for so actively participating and also giving us your time to share, to listen to what Julio and Linda had to share. So thank you all. And so I turn it back to you, Joe.
No, thank you. I knew that this would be really informative, but I had no idea it would be so inspiring. And so thank you all for your continued support for the IB program at UMSL. And for those of you as spectators, we have more events coming up all month. You can check out ib.umsl.edu. We have sessions on supply chain, cybersecurity, study abroad. So check out the site. And Julio, Shaker, Linda, thank you so much for all you did today and what you've done over the years for UMSL. We really appreciate you helping us transform lives.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Emily, and thank you both.
Take care.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.